Well, welcome back to our next edition of the Mike Care radio program, Eye on the Nation. We definitely have our Eye on the Nation, as always, proudly broadcasting from Ocoee, Florida, USA, planet Earth. And my next guest is Mr. Joe Rocha, and he is a great bass player, a guitar player, and drummer, and he's got a great studio, Polar Bear Studio, which we'll talk about. And actually, Joe also has on YouTube some instructional videos for the bass, and that's where I actually found out about Joe, because as everyone knows on this show, that I'm actually kind of a beginner to intermediate bass player, and I'm always trying to improve myself, and I'm always I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm always willing to learn new things, and I'm going on YouTube, and I found a lot of different people doing a lot of different videos, and the reason I like Joe's the best is he just seemed like he had a great attitude and he had a great passion, and he just presented it in a way that was almost like if you're a musician, it was just cool, just so cool about it. So it's great, Joe, that you're offering these free tips, and I appreciate it. So let's talk a little bit about, what you do, and a little bit about where your love and passion for music originally came from, and when did you start playing the bass then?
Well, thank you again, Mike, for having me, and I'm excited. I love talking music, so I'm glad to be here to talk with you. Let's see, where did I start? My love for music and everything I do now came from my dad. My dad is one of my biggest heroes. He was a staple on the Chicago dance scene. Oh, I should say it was Latin dance. He played a lot of Latin dance gigs, and a very well-rounded musical guy. He was a guitar player, a bass player, and we always had music in the house. Luckily for me, we had rehearsals at my house, and there was always music around. There were always instruments for me to like get onto and make all kinds of noise with. So it definitely shaped who I am now. Tons and tons of fun.
Oh, fantastic. And yeah, as we were mentioning, Joe, that you play a variety of different instruments, and the main one and the one we kind of want to focus on is bass, but also guitar and drums. And on your website, it says simple keyboard parts. So maybe, I know how that is being a musician. You do the best you can. You're not, necessarily a Mozart, but yeah, you can pretty much get by then.
Yeah. I'm very simplistic type chords. I started venturing out into sevenths and ninths and things. But my keyboard playing is very pedestrian. But I like playing the keyboards because it's very melodic, and I can transfer some of those ideas and chord structures and figures to bass as well.
Fantastic. So yeah, let's talk a little bit, about the bass. And the one thing that, I have been doing, and people when I audition for a band, is people have been asking me, do you know your particular scales and this and that. And a lot of times it seems to me that sometimes people, a lot of the people respectfully, they don't even read music. But for me, I thought my idea, and I'm sure you agree with this, Joe, is to try to get as much as possible to understand the theory and then apply it to my playing when needed. Yes,
absolutely. I started way back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth and all that. I was very much the rock and roll mindset. I wasn't thinking about reading. I wasn't thinking about any of that. But I kind of get a couple of raps in the head when I wanted to learn to play violin, and I played violin about 8 years from grade school into junior high, and absolutely fell in love with the instrument. But I didn't want to learn to read. I was kind of kicking and screaming because I didn't want to do that because I didn't have that kind of sensibility, or at least I thought at the time. I wanted to play Froggy Mountain Breakdown. I wanted Orange Blossom Special. I wanted to play fiddle. I didn't want to play violin. I was playing, Chopin and Mozart and Bach pieces and things. But I was glad I did. I was glad I got into the reading and, like I said, wrap me on the head. that I carried that on with me and used that in concert with learning to play guitar. But it was tough. The tough part was I was learning this instrument. I was learning the violin, and then learning to read, and then trying to figure out how to transfer that to guitar and bass and things. So it was another skill set that I was like, wait a minute, violin and the tuning is different, the guitar is different. I'm never going to get this. But I finally got around to making those things work, and I became a really good reader, being a violinist. But unfortunately, I still had that rock and roll mindset. I'm a good reader, but I'm not a sight reader anymore. I used to be, but I definitely think that it's important. It's important for students or people that love music and want to get into playing whatever instrument it is, to definitely get the basics. And there was a great quote. I think it was Billy Sheehan, a fantastic bass player, who said, "You have to know the rules before you can break them." And so I had that in the back of my mind. I was like, yeah, learn what you can about the instrument, the basics, and the basics of reading and stuff, and then it definitely blossoms from there. It is very important.
And the one thing, Joe, that I'm not necessarily struggling with, but I've always never been a big, I've never been a big fill guy. I've never necessarily did a lot of showboating, which a lot of times bands kind of appreciate. But I mean, a lot of times, I think you do kind of want to sometimes, do a lot of fills, take it, make it more melodic. But I know with me, a lot of times, if it sounds good, especially when I'm doing a song, I know a lot of times the bass players kind of go crazy. It's like, okay, but I've always been kind of just get that rhythm down. I mean, but again, it's personal preference then.
Sure, absolutely. I was definitely of that. Like I said, when I was growing up, my dad had tons of stuff on the turntable. We could be listening to the Latin hits of that day, and because I'm from Texas originally, I'm from Brownsville, and we definitely had this. The types of music were called rancheras or cumbias, and they're all forms of Latin dance. And we had that stuff on the turntable, and then in after a couple of minutes, I don't want to listen to that. I want to listen to some Jimi Hendrix. My dad had everything, or then it was James Brown, or I was definitely into Motown, and way back when didn't even know who the bass players were, but there was something about sitting there listening to, like, say, a Motown hit or something. That was before I even knew who James Jamerson was. And I'm sitting there going, why does this move me? It almost sounds like there's a lot of notes, but at the same time, it was so in the pocket, and so the groove was so deep you couldn't avoid falling into it. And that's what I grew up on. I grew up on the soul hits of the 60s and the 70s, and definitely those players could be flashy at times, but more often than not, they were definitely just pocket players. And that was something that I definitely latched onto. And even in my playing today, I have been known to showboat at times. And then, there's that internal, the internal thing going, play for the music, play for the song. And then I kind of get myself back out and go, okay, play for the song. So I can have those things in my back pocket. I do have those flashy things, the Billy Sheehan, the do some tapping and all this kind of stuff, or maybe a Victor Wooten where he slaps, and he's just an incredible player that way. But these guys definitely knew, as I do now, that it's definitely for the song, and I'm definitely that guy that plays for the song and be the rhythm player. But you have those things in your back pocket too.